Welcome to Mindful, where we take a break, we pause to think about those things that matter, give our attention to them. And today, my name is Jeff Jones, and I'm here with
Jeff Jones.
Jeff Jones. That's right. And Jeff is going to be our guide as we fall down the Reddit hole.
Yeah.
We're in a series called The Reddit Hole, where we're looking at really popular questions that people are asking about Christianity. And today, we're asking the question, aren't all religions the same? Which is, I remember going to college my freshman year and I met someone, as you do, the first year you're
Yeah.
meeting new friends, and someone finds out I'm a Christian. And they said, I don't like that whole Jesus is the only way thing.
Yeah.
I tend to like to think about God being on top of a mountain, and all religions are kind of just a different path up to the mountain. That was a heavy question as a freshman to kind of engage with.
Right.
But I know people are asking that question. We
Yeah.
see it on Reddit boards all the time. So how would you answer that question, or how would you engage that question?
Yeah, that's a very American approach, right? Because our view of truth is relative. The truth, that what's true for you is true for you. What's true for me is true for me. It can be contradictory, but that's okay. You do you, I do me, and that's the nature of truth. And therefore the mountain illustration is perfect for that, because you think, okay, the divine's on the top of the mountain. There's all these different ways up the mountains, Christianity, whatever, all these different religions. And okay, yeah, they're a little different than each other here and there, but they're all going to get to the same place.
We're all doing something. We're all trying.
Yeah, and if you're sincere, and you'll eventually get to the same place. And that's actually the opposite of Christianity. So Christianity is, and it's what makes Christianity unique among the religions of the world, is that it's not about climbing up the mountain and doing the path just right, and hopefully you'll climb your way and you'll eventually get to the divine or get to God or get to enlightenment. Christianity is not about crawling up the mountain. Christianity is about Jesus coming down the mountain, coming from heaven to us, to save us from a predicament that we could not get out of, and make available relationship with God freely as a gift, not by our efforts. It's not about us climbing our way to him. It's him coming for us. And that's radically different.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes Christianity unique.
Yeah. I love, I read in a book recently that God draws near to those things he loves. And so in sending Jesus to be a human, he actually became human to draw us to himself.
Yeah. And in some religions, that's blasphemous, that God would stoop to become human, that he would die.
Right.
And what does that mean?
Yeah.
And in his humanity, right, he dies on the cross for the sins of the world, all the world, And the reason he did that was not for the fun of it. He did that because we were really in a hole. It's like, and out of love, he came to do what we could not do ourselves. And I just heard a story yesterday from another pastor friend about, he was in Africa, and they had this, in this compound, they had an outhouse, but everything was kind of old and all that. And this girl, she was like 10 years old or something. The floor of the outhouse, the wood broke, and she fell down into that pit of all that.
Yes.
And it was like up to here.
Oh.
And she couldn't get out. And it was, it was too deep and it was too slippery. And so she's just crying out for help. And it took like 5 or 6 hours for somebody to, finally hear her and realize what was going on. And, her dad, gets down and pulls her out of that.
Yes.
And that, what a terrible thing, right? But that is a picture of what God has chosen to do. Like, we were in the muck, we couldn't get out. If I don't know what sin would smell like, but it probably smells something similar. And he came down into that to pull us out because we couldn't get out on our own. And that's why Jesus talks about, he came to seek and to save the lost, and so on. Save is this word that's used all the time. Rescue mission. And it sounds weird to us, but it's to save us from our sin, from the guilt of our sin, from the domination of sin in our life, and to pull us into relationship with God, because we couldn't get out of the pit on our own.
Yes.
So
No, I love that, because one of the words that will be tied to kind of that picture is grace, like God's grace.
Yeah.
And there's this story, and I've heard you share it, talking about a bunch of academic Christians, some religious scholars who gathered to talk about what makes Christianity so unique. And so for days, these intellectuals are
Yeah.
debating, I don't know if it's doctrine, theology, their understanding of God, scripture. And as you shared the story, C.S. Lewis comes by the third day and the question is posed to him saying, hey, we're having this conversation around Christianity, what makes it unique. And he says, oh, that's easy. It's the word grace. I hear that story and I'm struck by the fact that it's day 3
Yeah. Yeah.
that C.S. Lewis is able to drop in and say
Yeah.
grace. But what is it about grace that we can miss 2 days? We can have 2 days of conversation and,
Yeah,
and kind of miss that
that's
concept.
a great question. It's so hard for us to get that it really would work that way. That it's not about my effort, or it's not about what's fair. It's not about what's just. That's
Yes.
what's baked into. Like, we just think, well, that's not fair.
Well, that's
That's
why
not
we
just.
have to climb the mountain.
Yeah,
Like we have to do something.
Yeah, I've got
right?
to. Yeah, I've got to do enough good to make up for my bad, or to gain enlightenment, or it's about what I do, and some of that's, I think, a sense of justice and fairness, and grace is not fair. It's like you don't get what you deserve.
Yes.
You get what you don't deserve.
Yes. Yes.
And freely.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with what you do.
Yes.
It's all based on what God has done. And that's really hard. It's like, well, wait a minute, how could it be? That's too good to be true. And there's also an arrogance with us too, or pride, that's like, well, no, we have it starting at age 2.
Yes.
I want to do it myself,
Yes.
and so I think one of the reasons that Christianity is actually hard is that it's so easy,
Yes.
because it's like, well, no, I've got to do something.
There's got to be more to it than that.
And
Yes.
and it's not about what we do, do, it's what he's done, done.
Yes.
And he offers everything by his grace, by his work. It's not, we don't get what we deserve. We get what we do not deserve. And that's really crazy. I mean, John Newton, the slave trader, years ago, writes Amazing Grace.
Mhm.
And he's done all these despicable things, bringing, killing thousands of slaves in the journey on the way to America, and then those who make it, enslaving them. And he knows how despicable he is. And when he becomes a Christian, he writes a song because he just can't get over this.
Yes.
Really is
Yes.
the way it is.
Yes.
It really is grace.
Yes.
And it is. And
Yes.
so it doesn't, we don't relate to God based on our works, but his grace. And that's pretty wild.
Yeah. A song that's almost like a prayer. That's the
Yeah.
Amazing Grace is so.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, we're talking about grace. There's nothing we can do. And yet in this conversation, it seems that many Christians, well, I shouldn't say many Christians, I won't judge them, but a lot of people have encounters with Christians
Yeah.
who present this understanding in an arrogant way.
Yeah.
But it just feels like that's incompatible with the message.
It
of
is.
grace,
Yeah.
right?
There's none of us have, that's another implication, is that none of us are superior or could ever feel superior. If you
Yes.
understand grace, it's not about,
Yes.
how can I be superior? We're
Yes.
all in the same boat. We're all in that pit of crud, of muck. We're all sinners in need of a savior. And that's it. Like,
Yes.
it doesn't matter if you may smell just a little bit better than somebody else. We
Right.
all stink.
Yes.
We're all in the same deal. And so and that's why, one of the verses that talks about that in the Bible is, that we're saved not by works, but by grace, so that no one can boast.
Mhm.
Meaning we can't boast about, man, look who I am, look what
Yes.
I've attained, because we haven't attained anything. It's
Yes.
not based on what we've attained. It's God's grace, not our deservingness or our effort. And so therefore none of us can boast or look down on somebody else. And so
Yes.
if so-called Christians do look down on somebody else that way, it just shows they don't understand the point. They don't understand
Yes.
grace. And they may want to be open to the fact they may not understand Christianity at all.
Mhm.
When you be a
Yeah.
Christian.
Yeah. Right.
But because once you understand grace,
Yes.
that's not
It changes
gonna happen.
everything. Yeah. So perhaps someone is watching this for the first time or kind of wrestling with this idea of like, aren't all religions the same? And they've heard you talk about Christianity.
Yeah.
What would you kind of say is a next step for them, kind of maybe investigating grace, or how do they take that next step in
Yeah, when we say Christianity is unique and all that, the world religion, there are things that religions have in common,
Right.
and some really good things that they
Yes.
have in common. So I'm not totally just throwing everything about every religion out the window.
Right.
There's some wonderful things in there, but there really is two ways. There's every other religion and Christianity, and every other religion is about works. Christianity is about grace. And so in terms of how do you step into that, how do you step toward that, of course, it's actually pretty easy to do because everything has already been done, but it is a lot to process. And so I think there are great opportunities, coming to a church like Chase Oaks that is there for people, not just church people, but for not church people, a safe place to come with your questions, with your doubts. Like a friend of mine who comes here from time to time, he's like, man, I would love to be, I love the idea of it. I just still have some doubts and questions. I would love to just snap my way out of that. And I can't. I just,
Yes.
it's like that, of course. I mean, that's a lot to take in. So just come, and he has gotten to know people. He's in a small group, and is working those out. And
Yes.
in a church like this is a place where that can happen.
Yes.
There's a thing we have called established that's designed to, that's a very safe place to do that. There are other churches around the country like that. And I think the right kind of church that gets grace
Yes.
and gives space for people who don't believe, who are open and want to work things out, I think is the best place to be.
Yeah, I love that. Finding an environment where it's safe to
Yeah.
explore grace. To
Yeah, and at a church like Chase Oaks, we let people know you can belong here before
Yes.
you believe. You don't have to be a believer to belong. And
Yes.
a lot of people, when I say that, if they're a church person, like well, how can you, blah? But that's the way Jesus related to people, right? He welcomed people in way before they believed.
Yes.
I mean, even the disciples,
Yes.
they weren't believers. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
Yes.
They didn't understand
Yes.
who Jesus was. It took them a long time to begin to get that. And that's just part of discipleship or part of the journey. And we're, so yeah, I think to be in a place that understands that and is really important.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you guys for joining us for Mindful. As Jeff said, if you're in the area, if you're in the Dallas area, we'd love to have you at Chase Oaks Church. You can find out more below as well. You can subscribe to these conversations where we continue to ask these questions. And so I want to thank you guys for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.